With pretty much every gacha game out there, majority of players would tend to focus on 5 stars and will often completely disregard 4-star characters, which is understandable as 4 stars in most gacha games tend to fall off in value significantly from release or are dead on arrival. However, WutheringWaves happens to be one of the few games that takes pride in their 5-star and 4-star characters, as they have proven to age like fine wine so far and it will likely continue to be that way for a while. Additionally, by now, players will know exactly how expensive investing in a single character is, which may lead to some hesitancy as no one really wants to invest in a character that will suddenly become irrelevant due to the release of another. So with that, I'm going to be going through some 4-star characters that pretty much have guaranteed long-term value, so you would be able to invest in them comfortably, along with the insane value 4-star characters hold in comparison to some 5 stars, and ultimately, how WutheringWaves is one of the most free-to-play friendly games in gacha gaming. Just before we jump into it, as always, would really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel for more WutheringWaves content and drop a like if you enjoyed the video. Now I'll kick this off with a 4-star character that will likely become a lot more relevant quite soon, being Sanhua, a Glacial type sub DPS character that is in fact given for free to every player at the start of the game, currently does still hold a ton of value and it will certainly remain that way for a while. Sanhua has many amazing traits such as being able to deal great burst damage in a short window and is capable of building concerto energy insanely quick. But one specific trait that allows Sanhua to hold immense longevity would be her outro skill, given it is capable of providing a massive 38% increase in normal attack damage for the next resonator switching in. So this outro skill alone is just extremely valuable, as it does enable Sanhua to smoothly slide into many team compositions and support main DPS characters that mostly deal basic attack damage. So characters such as Encore, Yangyang, and even Rover would greatly benefit with having Sanhua as their sub DPS. So as more characters are going to release that specialize in dealing basic attack damage, Sanhua will always be able to maintain her longevity as an insane sub DPS character. Additionally, since Sanhua is a 4-star character, sequence nodes would definitely be something to take into consideration as you would eventually accumulate them over time. So with Sanhua's sequence nodes specifically, they would mostly offer buffs to herself, but then taking a look at her final sequence node, she is able to buff all team members' attack up to 20%, which allows Sanhua to be even more valuable as a sub DPS as it would extend her longevity and utility. So Sanhua's kit is pretty much stacked and it does allow her to be an insane sub DPS character for many main DPS characters now and in the future, such as with Camellia, which is expected to be a basic attack damage dealer. So Camellia would be able to testify Sanhua's value, as she is releasing many versions later into the game, and with Sanhua releasing at launch, goes to show exactly how great Sanhua is and the sort of longevity she holds due to likely being Camellia's best in slot sub DPS. Now moving on to quite an underappreciated character being Yangyang, which is ironically the poster girl of WutheringWaves. Yangyang is in fact another free character given right at the beginning of the game, and with time, it would be fair to say Yangyang is definitely a character that has aged quite well so far and will continue to. Similar to Sanhua, Yangyang is capable of building concerto energy quite quick, but isn't the greatest in terms of dealing damage. So instead, Yangyang is able to provide slightly more support, given that she is one of the only few characters capable of crowd controlling enemies. Granted, it may not be as great as Jianxin's crowd controlling ability, but given the right situation, it may prove to be valuable for your main DPS character to deal damage more efficiently to all enemies. Again, similar to Sanhua, Yangyang possesses an outro skill which allows her to hold quite a lot of longevity, due to its effect being extremely versatile since it is capable of restoring a max of 20 resonance energy for the resonator switching in. So for characters that are heavily dependent on their resonance liberation, such as Jiyan, Calcharo or Changli, Yangyang would essentially be a battery for them and will allow for their resonance liberation to be activated much more often. So with that alone, it certainly allows Yangyang to be a great sub DPS character, and given there will definitely be plenty of characters in the future that are heavily dependent on their liberation, means that Yangyang will always hold her value as a sub DPS with a great amount of utility. Additionally, Yangyang does share the exact same final sequence node as Sanhua, which would allow her to be even more valuable due to the ability of buffing the entire team's attack by up to 20%. So with that included, Yangyang is definitely a character that holds immense long-term value due to her insane buffing capabilities and great versatility. Now on to more of a popular 4-star character which I assume many players have already built up due to his immense value, being Mortefi. Due to his insane synergy with Jiyan, which was our first premium DPS character in the game, many players likely already discovered how amazing Mortefi is quite early on. Just like our previous two characters, Mortefi is also capable of generating concerto energy insanely quick, which already makes him a valuable sub-DPS character. However, due to the ability of dealing coordinated attacks, it allows Mortefi to be a great off-field damage dealer and will be able to provide the main DPS character with more field time than others. So considering that main DPS characters tend to usually require a lot of field time, Mortefi will definitely hold quite a lot of value with just that, and more specifically, the best DPS character in the game being Genshin does have a strict requirement of having a sub-DPS character capable of dealing coordinated attacks beside her, given that she obtains more stacks on a forte gauge through coordinated attacks, which means Mortefi will be one of the characters able to definitely support Genshin. Maybe not the best, but would still be an option. Now as for the most valuable aspect within Mortefi's kit, it would have to be his outro skill, considering that he is able to buff heavy attack damage by up to 38%. Now this is certainly more niche in comparison to Sanhua and Yangyang's outro skills, as there really is only one DPS character able to fully utilize the outro skill, being Jiyan. So as of now, Mortefi doesn't have much versatility, but with time that will certainly change. Just as there are multiple characters able to deal damage considered as basic attack damage, there will definitely be more characters that deal damage considered as heavy attack damage. So with that, I would understand the need to not build the Mortefi right now if you don't have Jiyan, but it would be fair to consider building him up sometime later, as there will be characters that deal mostly heavy attack damage that you will likely pick up. Lastly, just like with Sanhua and Yangyang, Mortefi's final sequence node would be something all three characters share, which makes Mortefi even better with sequence nodes, and considering that he has been on many banners up until now, I assume most of you would already have him at S6, unless you're me. As for the final 4-star character, to no surprise, it would be none other than Danjin. Now Danjin is in fact going to be the only character I'll be going over which is considered as a main DPS character, but is still great as a secondary DPS character. Just like with the previous characters, Danjin has definitely aged like fine wine, due to being capable of dealing insane amounts of damage, which is comparable to some 5-star characters, and having great supportive capabilities. Even prior to the release of WutheringWaves, Danjin was one of the most hyped characters due to her interesting and unique mechanic, being the ability to exchange her own HP in order to deal more damage and to be able to continuously spam her resonant skill. So given Danjin's high risk high reward playstyle in a game like WutheringWaves, where battles are definitely not a cakewalk, allows players to have a surge of adrenaline trying to clear through content with Danjin, as only the skilled would be able to use Danjin at her maximum capacity. So as a main DPS character, Danjin is certainly one of the more fun and challenging characters to play with. However, with most main DPS characters, with time they do soon fade away and would be used much less often. But with Danjin, she is in fact able to also play as a secondary DPS, since her outro skill is capable of providing a 23% havoc damage increase to the next resonator. So essentially, every havoc DPS character that releases later on, Danjin would definitely be one of the first characters to consider to play as a sub DPS character alongside them, just like with Camellia, as she is a havoc type DPS character. Additionally, as for sequence nodes, Danjin receives quite a few massive upgrades, such as her resonant skill dealing 20% more damage, a 30% increase in havoc damage, and again, just like with the previous character stated, she will also be able to increase the entire team's attack by 20%, which certainly allows her to be an amazing sub DPS as well as a great main DPS. So arguably, Danjin would be the most valuable character for new accounts, as she is able to carry you through content as a main main DPS, and when you have acquired stronger DPS characters that you want to use instead, you would still be able to utilize Danjin as a great sub DPS for quite some time. Overall, 4-star characters in WutheringWaves truly have peak design, as they are extremely valuable from the moment you acquire one copy and will proceed to become even better with sequence nodes. A trend you may have realized amongst the 4-star characters I stated was the fact that their sequence nodes aren't just limited to buffing themselves, as the final sequence node is capable of buffing the entire team, which would of course extend their longevity as buffers, which are the most valuable characters in majority of gacha games. So the fact that there are multiple 4-star characters that can offer buffs for the team through the base kit and through sequence nodes really goes to show how WutheringWaves is definitely one of the most free-to-play friendly games in the gacha space. Since as alluring as 5-star characters can be, the 4-stars pack enough punch and value to clear pretty much all endgame content, which is all that really matters. Now just bear in mind there are definitely other characters that do hold a ton of value, such as Baizhi and Yuhu, given they are capable of healing and buffing the entire team. But considering there are 5-star counterparts already in the game, it means they wouldn't have as much long-term value as someone like Sanhua that has no 5-star counterpart. So that being said, I would definitely suggest to build these characters at some point if you haven't already, given they provide a ton of utility through their kit and have insane team flexibility. But as always, whether you do build them up will be completely down to you. And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Would really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel for more WutheringWaves content, and if you enjoyed the video, drop a like. Also drop a comment down below on which of these characters you have built up so far and just your opinions on them. And yeah, hope to catch you guys later.